Welcome to Life Stories, where real lives unfold in unexpected ways. I've always believed that love binds a family together, like a thread weaving through every moment. For years, I thought my family was unshakable, built on trust and devotion. But sometimes, the ones we trust the most are the ones who break us. It all started one late autumn evening when my sister Rachel stopped by for tea. Her face shadowed with unease. Little did I know, that evening would unravel everything I believed about love, loyalty, and family. Let's begin this journey together. I've always believed that love binds a family together, like a warm thread weaving through every moment of our lives, holding us steady. For years, I thought my family was unshakable, built on trust and devotion. But sometimes, the people we trust the most are the ones who break us. It all began one late autumn evening. The kind of evening where the golden leaves scatter like whispers on the wind. My sister, Rachel, stopped by for tea. Her face shadowed with unease. We hadn't been as close recently, but I knew her well enough to sense when something weighed on her. "Jessica," she began hesitantly, her voice trembling. "I saw something strange." I laughed nervously, brushing off her seriousness. "Rachel, what could possibly be strange in my life? You know, I'm just juggling twins, a house, and endless laundry." Her expression didn't change. "It's about Emma and Ethan. I saw them, mimicking something. It didn't feel right. Something they couldn't have come up with on their own." Her words stayed with me, burrowing deep into my thoughts. My children, my innocent, playful 7-year-olds, had always been my joy, my sanctuary. But Rachel's tone, her worried eyes, planted a seed of doubt. That night, I tucked Emma and Ethan into bed as usual, kissing their foreheads and listening to their laughter echo through the house. Yet, as I watched them sleep, I couldn't ignore the unease in my heart. A few days later, while tidying Ethan's room, I found something strange, a small piece of fabric tucked under his pillow. It wasn't part of anything we owned, and its very presence made my stomach churn. The thought struck me like lightning: what if Rachel's worries were justified? What if my children were witnessing something that wasn't meant for them? I felt a pang of guilt as I installed the hidden cameras. Spying on my own home felt like a betrayal of trust. But my instincts screamed for answers. For days, I went through my routine, pretending everything was fine. Each evening, I sat alone in our living room, reviewing the footage with trembling hands, dreading what I might find. And then, one night, there it was. The screen flickered with a scene I could barely process. My husband, Daniel, and Rachel, my own sister, were together in ways that shattered every notion of loyalty and love I had ever believed in. It wasn't just the act itself, it was the laughter between them, the casual intimacy, the sense that this had been happening for far longer than I dared to imagine. I froze, unable to breathe. As the scene shifted, Emma and Ethan appeared, innocently imitating the gestures they had witnessed, unaware of their meaning. My heart broke into pieces. My children, my beautiful, untainted children, had been pulled into the web of betrayal without even knowing it. Tears streamed down my face as I realized the depth of the damage. I confronted Daniel that night. I can still remember the way his face shifted from confusion to fear when I laid the evidence before him. "How could you?" I whispered, my voice cracking. "How could you do this to me? To us, to them?" Rachel arrived soon after, summoned by Daniel's frantic call. I couldn't even look at her. When I did, all I saw was the woman who had once braided my hair as a child, who had stood by my side on my wedding day, and who had now torn my world apart. I didn't scream. I didn't rage. I simply told them both to leave. I told them that their actions had destroyed something irreplaceable, and that there was no room for them in my life anymore. The tears on their faces did little to move me. They had made their choices. Now I had to make mine. That night, as I held Emma and Ethan close, I made a vow. My children would not carry the weight of this betrayal. They would not grow up in a home where love was tainted and trust was broken. I would protect them, even if it meant rebuilding everything from the ground up. As I lay in the quiet darkness, the pain felt endless, like a storm that would never subside. But beneath it all, a small ember of resolve began to glow. I didn't know how I would move forward, but I knew this: I owed it to Emma and Ethan to try. And so, the thread that once bound our family was torn. But perhaps, in time, I could learn to weave something new, something stronger, from the pieces that remained. In the weeks that followed, the silence in the house was deafening. Daniel had moved out, and Rachel was no longer a presence in my life. Their absence left an echo of betrayal that I couldn't ignore. But the most challenging part was facing my children. Emma and Ethan were too young to understand the complexities of what had happened. To them, their father and aunt had simply disappeared, leaving behind a void that I struggled to fill. One evening, as we sat together at the dinner table, Ethan looked up at me with wide, innocent eyes. "Mommy, where's Daddy? Why doesn't Aunt Rachel visit anymore?" The question hit me like a punch to the chest. My instinct was to shield them, to tell them some kind of comforting lie. But as I stared into their expectant faces, I realized they deserved the truth at least, as much of it as they could comprehend. Taking a deep breath, I placed my hands gently on theirs. "Daddy and Aunt Rachel made choices that hurt our family," I said softly. "It wasn't right. And it's not something that we can fix right now. But I promise you this: I love you both more than anything in the world. And I will always take care of you." Emma frowned, her small brows knitting together. "Did we do something wrong?" she asked quietly. My heart ached at her words. "No, sweetheart," I said, pulling her into a hug. "You did nothing wrong. This is not your fault. Sometimes, adults make mistakes, and those mistakes can hurt the people around them. But it's never because of you." From that moment on, I made a conscious effort to create a sense of stability for them. Our home became a sanctuary where they could feel safe and loved. I restructured our routines, filling the days with warmth and consistency. We baked cookies together, played board games, and spent hours reading stories on the couch. Slowly, the laughter returned to our lives, though it often felt bittersweet. Filing for divorce was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. It felt like the final nail in the coffin of a life I had spent years building. But as I signed the papers, I reminded myself that this was not an ending, it was a new beginning. One where I could protect myself and my children from further pain. Family pressure weighed heavily on me. My parents, torn between their two daughters, urged me to reconcile with Rachel, to move past it for the sake of the family. But I stood firm. "Forgiveness doesn't mean allowing someone back into your life," I told them. "I can't expose Emma and Ethan to that kind of betrayal again. They need stability, not more chaos." In the quiet moments, when the children were asleep and the house was still, the enormity of what I had lost would overwhelm me. But in those moments, I would remind myself of what I still had: too bright, loving children who needed me to be strong. The bond between Emma and Ethan deepened in ways I hadn't expected. They clung to each other, their shared laughter and whispers a reminder of the resilience of childhood. Watching them, I realized that healing wasn't just possible, it was already beginning. In the space left by betrayal, I started to build something new. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't easy, but it was ours. And for the first time in weeks, I began to feel hope. As the months passed, the sharp sting of betrayal dulled into an ache, a quiet reminder of what I had endured. Yet, even in that ache, there was a strange sort of clarity. My life, once defined by the roles of wife, sister, and mother, now demanded something different: rediscovery. It began in the smallest of ways. One afternoon, as Emma and Ethan played in the backyard, I found myself drawn to an old box in the attic. Inside, I uncovered memories of a version of myself I had long forgotten, sketchbooks filled with unfinished drawings, jars of dried paint, and a photo of me smiling brightly beside an easel. For a moment, I couldn't recognize that girl. She had dreams, passions, and a spark that felt so far removed from the Jessica I had become. That night, after the children had gone to bed, I brought out the sketchbooks and a small set of paints. Tentatively, I began to draw. My hands trembled at first, but as the lines and colors came together, something inside me stirred. The hours melted away, and when I finally looked up, I felt a faint flicker of pride, a feeling I hadn't experienced in a long time. Rediscovery wasn't limited to art. I started attending a local book club that met every Wednesday evening at a quaint coffee shop downtown. At first, I was nervous, unsure if I could connect with people outside of my family, but the group, a mix of women and men from different walks of life, welcomed me warmly. We discussed novels that spanned continents and centuries, diving into stories of resilience, love, and growth. Each meeting felt like a step back into the world, a reminder that there was life beyond my pain. Emma and Ethan were a part of this journey, too. I began planning small adventures with them, picnics in the park, day trips to the zoo, and one memorable weekend camping trip that ended with us laughing under a star-filled sky. These moments weren't just for them, they were for me as well. Watching my children explore, laugh, and grow reminded me that joy could still be found, even in the simplest of things. Of course, not every day was easy. There were moments when the weight of the past crept in, like when Emma asked why Daddy didn't come to her school play, or when I saw Ethan staring at an old family photo. Those moments felt like fresh wounds, but I learned to confront them with honesty and love. It's okay to miss him, I told them. It's okay to feel sad. But remember, we still have each other, and we'll always be a family. In time, I found myself dreaming again. I dreamed of taking the kids on a cross-country road trip, of visiting art galleries in distant cities, and of creating a life filled with experiences rather than regrets. Every step forward felt like reclaiming a piece of myself, a reminder that life could begin anew even after heartbreak.